its default. Motherfucker.
You are listening to Happy Jacks RPG Podcast. Pursuing the RPG hobby with reckless abandon.
There's probably some other thing.
Hello. That's what I forgot to do. I forgot to bring up the chat.
And now you should have... You know, should I just restart the show? I'm going to restart the show.
Yeah, I mean, might as well. We're all
No
of
one heard that.
5 minutes into it. We're all of 2 minutes into it.
I'm going to restart. I'll see you guys in a second. You are listening to Happy Jacks RPG Podcast. Pursuing the RPG hobby with reckless abandon. Well, hello, and welcome to Season 29, Episode 3 of Happy
Point
Jacks
one.
RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
And I'm still Kurt.
In this episode of Happy Jacks RPG Podcast, Michael from Pittsburgh writes in about running games in a modern setting, and Aimless sends us a question, kind of a horror story, about a GM as a player. But first, if you'd like to email us, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com.
Blurb.
We do the show live at 10 a.m.
Plus or minus 7 minutes.
Our first version we do at 10 a.m. Our second version we do at 10:07
right.
a.m. Pacific time.
That first version is real short.
It was extremely short. At happyjacks.org/live. All right. Running games in a modern setting from Michael in Pittsburgh. First time email. Greetings, Michael from Pittsburgh. First time email from myself, longtime fan. Thank you. I want to start by saying your shows helped me through the worst COVID cleaning at the hospital I work at. This leads me to starting a work game where we would play on our lunch breaks, playing 30 minutes at a time, which we commented earlier.
That's
our bullshit sessions.
Yeah, or 45 minutes.
Right. In fact, we just started our second campaign set in a gothic fantasy land where the PCs play as classical movie monsters trying to find and recruit the Lords of Edge. These games are fun, but they're sort of short. But these short sessions are, well, short. They want to play outside of work. No problem, I say. How do y'all feel about playing a superhero game set in our city? In fact, I read
Pittsburgh
the same
is a
paragraph.
great city for that.
Yes, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've never been there, but
its name is great for that.
I mean, it's the pits.
The old steel industry there, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it still is, but yeah, I mean, it was
once upon
it's
a
kind of the capital of the Rust Belt. I mean,
right.
So, yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, it's. I always feel like a superhero city should have that kind of grittiness to it.
Right.
That kind of blue collar aspect to it.
I agree.
Much more than Philly, for instance, has.
Right. With wide-eyed glee, they jump at the bit and start telling me the superpowers they want their characters. They want and their character ideas. This is great, but thinking on it, I've never run a real-world setting before and can use some advice from the pros. Thank you for the content and stay safe, Michael.
Well, we're certainly not poets, so we must be pros.
Heyo.
So my first thought on this is, you know your hometown. I'm assuming that you know your hometown, whether you grew up there or you've just lived there for long enough and you feel comfortable with the idea of your town well enough. That being said, exaggerate everything. Mm-hmm. Superhero games are they are best when they are 4-color, comic book, just punching people through walls kind of thing, and you want to exaggerate everything. You want to exaggerate the bad as well as the good, in order to just give everything a heightened sense of importance and moment.
I would say that especially if you're running in your city, you have a massive advantage in that you know it intimately well. Mm-hmm. Why make up the coffee house that the party is going to meet someone at?
Exactly.
Use the one that everyone knows that's around the corner from the hospital,
right?
And include real people as NPCs.
Yeah.
And this is a golden opportunity to make an extremely immersive setting in a fictional game.
Tip on using real people as NPCs. If there's someone that your players and you collectively don't like at work, don't include them in your game. It will get out. That people will talk, tongues will wag. It is just the way things happen, and it just use public figures. Public figures are perfectly fine, and you won't get hit with a defamation lawsuit. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a problem.
Yeah. So yeah, that's about one other bit of advice there.
But I mean, all of your locations, you already know where they are.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. And you already have a cast of NPCs. And especially if it's like businesses around where you work that everyone knows. Yeah, that it just makes the whole thing more authentic. The other thing I think that for modern games, and then this may be something that people of a younger generation don't need to worry about as much because they grew up with it, is be ready for the internet and the fact that everyone has the sum of human knowledge on their phone, and they're going to use it.
Yep. Absolutely.
So any mysteries that you want to have, they have to be made out of whole cloth. They can't be mysteries that like you looked up on a Wikipedia page, because guess what? Someone else can look it up on a Wikipedia page. That you can also use that, though. You can use the internet as a prop.
Oh, you absolutely
And I've done that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Last time I ran a superhero game, they came across someone who had the classic conspiracy red twine board, right? And they found a sheet of paper that just had a list of coordinates, latitude and longitude coordinates. And so one of my players dug out her laptop, pulled up Google Earth, and started typing in the coordinates to figure out where all these places were, because it was only coordinates. There were no names, it was nothing. And as she was putting in the coordinates, she's like, okay, so that's somewhere in New Mexico. Those two are in Japan. That one's in Pennsylvania. That one's in that one's Chernobyl. Oh. So they were all sites of that one's Bikini Atoll,
right?
So there's like they were all
sites of nuclear detonation or nuclear problems.
Well, not problems, but I mean, there were not all of them
events.
Were detonations, nuclear events. Yes, exactly. So it was like Hiroshima, Nagasaki, White Sands, Pripyat / Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island.
Right.
And then there were a couple of other locations, and they were listed in chronological order. So like White Sands was first, right, and so on down the line. And then there were like 3 sets of coordinates where, to the player's knowledge, no nuclear event had ever happened, and one of them was Disney World.
Awesome.
So, specifically Magic Kingdom, Disney World. Specifically, I think it was Frontierland.
Okay.
Because Tomorrowland was too on point.
Right. The other thing about cell phones is that's a great way, especially if you're running a superhero game. That's a great way for the players' good deeds and bad deeds to go viral.
Oh my God, yes.
And it's a fantastic way to get accountability. Like if your players are supposed to be heroic, and there's not, and at times they're not acting heroic. Well, it takes this one bystander with a cell phone who's streaming it up to TikTok or something, and next thing you know, you've got an 8-second video of you being an ass that everyone gets to see.
I'm thinking of 2 things I've watched recently. SAS: Rise of the Black Swan, which is essentially about a psychopath hunting another psychopath.
Oh, cool.
But it's like a good guy psychopath hunting a bad guy, or bad girl sociopath, psychopath. But it does, a lot of the plot does center around the fact that somebody was at the site of where bad psychopath did their thing with a phone camera and posted it to the internet.
Right.
And it's like, you were supposed to be clandestine. You are now world famous.
You dick.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other one is, you pointed me at this, was clickbait, which I'm now like 5 episodes in on, and very much...
It's good.
It's good. It's creepy. I mean, it's a Rashomon series that just like, it's finding all these clues from different points of view, and that's another thing that you can incorporate into any modern setting, really, because you've got bloggers out there, and you've got social media out there, and you can create private social media sites.
You've also got
private social media accounts. Dark web.
You got the dark web.
You can create these things fairly easily, fairly on the cheap, and it's sort of going back to our favorite use of newspapers, but newspapers now are blog sites and such.
Right.
So and social media. So
that I'm thinking about that.
what is
clickbait.
protection.org?
Right. Clickbait would be a fantastic story to steal for a superhero game, too.
That's what I was planning on doing. I wasn't planning on doing that at all. That wasn't, if any of my players were, damn it!
Alrighty. So, is that do I think of more to know about?
Oh, and obviously, you have to incorporate Three River Stadium into the overarching plot of this. Whether it's as it's the secret hideout of your heroes, the secret hideout of your villains, total red herring. You have to incorporate Three River Stadium in somehow. I mean, if you're playing in Pittsburgh, it's kind of a thing. So right. I'm sure you're already thinking that, though.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else about modern setting. Oh, accountability. I mean,
yeah,
a superhero game is a little bit different, but there is accountability. I mean, we live in a land of laws, and then there's, you do something loud and illegal, someone is going to call the police.
Yeah.
And there's only a matter of time before they show up.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how true to now society you want to cleave. There some people, what they love most is to tear people off of pedestals, and I mean that figuratively, not literally. I'm all in favor of tearing actual things off of pedestals, but. Yeah, I mean, it just, they go back and find something that you said 10 years ago on the internet, or in a private conversation. It's like, well, this one time he said that, French fries are un-American.
Right.
It's like, what? Like, okay, so he's, how you want to incorporate that into, I mean, part of setting is times. Part of setting is zeitgeist, and incorporating that, not just the geography, but the culture of the time and place that you're in is a huge aspect of that. So, or you may want a slightly more utopian concept for your superhero game, and therefore you have more like Metropolis. Or you might want a slightly more dystopian feel for your game, in which case you have Gotham City.
Right. Oh, it's Carlos. I'm like, why am I hearing
truck
beeping?
Out there backing up.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Michael, for the email. I appreciate it. And on to...
In the chat, James suggests that MeWe could be a real site.
Right. Social media is kind of its own NPC.
It absolutely is.
Yeah. The whole internet is kind of its own.
Exactly, right.
All right. Why some GMs are lousy players? That's actually my editorializing.
Okay. All right.
From Aimless.
Hi, guys. So I'm kind of new to DMing. As a player, my experience was with a DM whose campaigns were basically a script.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I've known that. I've known that GM. If we, the players, didn't do what the DM wanted, then he would have one of his old wizard characters appear as an NPC and magically whisk all the players to a room with no windows and no doors until we agreed to do what the DM wanted. So, flash forward, I'm the DM for a campaign that I spent months putting together. It was an open world pirate campaign.
Pirates. Cool.
Everything is better with pirates.
Mm-hmm.
I drew up maps with areas that had interactions, all the monsters printed out and put into my folder. Basically, the world played like a game of Elder Scrolls Oblivion. Okay. I had the main countries in the middle of a war, thus they were hiring pirates as independent contractors. That makes them privateers.
That's right.
Some legitimacy. Letters of marque. Some materials were harder to come by because kings were hoarding them for their armies, etc. No, that never happens.
Of course.
Now, keep in mind, pirates. I told the players they could do literally anything they wanted. Their characters could be anything they wanted, as long as they could give a solid reason why that character would be working with the party. But given that a lot of pirates and crew were freed slaves, very little couldn't be worked out. This was their story. I was just there to give plot points. That so far sounds...
Yep.
So far, so good. Now, the previous DM that I had mentioned is playing in this campaign. Let's call them Person A. Person A wanted mithril armor.
Okay, if you're going to give someone a fictitious moniker,
Yeah.
give them a name, not Person A.
I mean, that's too close to persona.
It is.
So,
What's a good name that starts with an A?
Abercrombie.
Abercrombie. We'll call him Abercrombie.
Abercrombie. Okay, Abercrombie.
Him or her?
It's
him,
all.
Does it say? Is it him or her?
No, but
We'll find out. Okay. Them.
yes.
Abercrombie.
Right. Abercrombie wanted mithril armor. I explained that none of the shops sell mithril because orders from the kings. It's hard to come by and hard to work, so until the end of the war, no one could purchase mithril.
That's reasonable.
Sure, absolutely. One of the kings had tried to hire the party to work for them. Abercrombie was still crying about mithril armor. The king said that they worked for him. He would provide them with reasonable armor of their choice, including mithril. Abercrombie cried about mithril, and the party decided against accepting the king's offer because of Abercrombie. Player B, I named the last one.
Bartholomew.
Bartholomew. That's a good pirate name.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Bartholomew mentioned maybe robbing the armory in the middle of the night.
Hey, larceny.
Exactly.
Very PC.
Piracy.
Piracy. Land pirates.
Land pirate. Land pirate. Abercrombie still cried literal
Candygram.
tears. Literally cried.
Literally cried. Actual tears.
Actual tears streaming down their face, about mithril armor. They didn't rob the armory. This went on for several sessions, with Abercrombie crying because they couldn't purchase mithril, and that I was being an unreasonable DM and didn't know what I was doing, obviously. And that it's in the books as something that can be purchased from any shop, so they should be able to buy it no matter what.
What the fuck?
Then proceeded to spend the next several sessions just talking about the campaign they wanted to run that everyone would have fun doing, because Abercrombie wasn't having fun with this campaign.
Passive aggressive.
That's not even all that passive.
No, it isn't.
That's actively aggressive.
It's shitty passive aggression.
You are shitty as a player and also shitty as a passive aggressive person. You're giving a bad name to passive aggressiveness.
Yes.
That's saying something. The rest of the players were having a blast exploring. They glitched a lich into thinking it was stone and tied it to the mast of the ship, knocked on the door of a nest of Hydra with a cannon blast, impregnated half a village, rescued a kidnapped princess, and then forgot they had her, so they kidnapped a kidnapped princess. What? Okay. I mean, and this whole time, Abercrombie was obsessed with mithril. Was I wrong to not just give it to him so he would stop crying, even though it went against the storyline I had established? In my head, it made sense that kings would hoard material for their armies in times of, basically, a world war. Yes, that's
Of course they do.
Yes, of course. Rationing and in total war, absolutely. So they wouldn't be able to purchase certain things. But pirates? I mean, just steal the mithril and move on, right? Yes, just you're fucking pirates. Just steal it. What is it about pirates that you don't understand?
No,
It's like I totally didn't see those ninjas over there.
Right. There is a bigger problem here. And that bigger problem is you have someone who is GMing who doesn't want anyone else GMing.
Yeah, probably.
I have a feeling that's what your real problem is.
You have a control freak who is not in control.
So to answer your direct question about the mithril, I don't think that matters.
No.
You could have given it to them. They would have probably have found something else that they absolutely hated about the campaign, and it should end immediately and theirs should start.
Yeah.
It seems to me that's your real problem. I'm reading a lot into it, but from what you're describing.
That's kind of what we're asked to do here, is read between the lines.
Right,
so.
exactly.
I think Stu's 100% right there. And I don't know I've ever used those words before.
Now, the thing is, It is difficult when you GM, especially if you GM a lot. Like I mean, 99% of my game time is GMing. I mean, you're probably in a similar boat.
I mean,
It may not be quite that high, but
recently, but overall, I'd probably say it's for me, it's closer to 60-40.
okay. But you when you end up GMing, especially if you've GM'd for a while, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to play in a game.
Oh, it's sometimes hard to shut that brain off.
Right. It gets real hard because first off, there's a couple things that you do. One, you're second guessing the other GM.
Yeah.
And you can't help it. I mean, your brain's is just going to go there. The second thing is you start playing like a GM plays, which is in some games is okay. Like certain games where you have like where the storytelling part of the game is extremely collaborative, like PBTA games and stuff like that, where narrative control is part of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
In those
Fate
cases,
also, Fate is another one that's like that.
Right.
Narrative, when you're specifically working with the mechanics of the game to tell the story.
right?
Yeah, that
And those kinds of games a little bit different, but I mean, like your regular sort of top-down GM player game, like Dungeons and Dragons or things like that, or most traditional games.
right.
Sometimes you're playing. At least I find that I end up playing, doing things that I think the GM would appreciate. Like having my character do things that the GM would appreciate, to throw them stuff rather than necessarily playing the way my. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
rather
I do, because I've run a game that you were a player in, so I do know what you're talking about.
And it's not exactly backseat GMing.
That isn't.
Right.
That is not. That is giving your GM a gift, and that's fine. Along with high-quality whiskey, that is fine for giving as gifts to GMs. But sometimes you just do. You can't help but turn. You literally just can't turn that GM brain off, and you're looking at everything from a tactical point of view, or you're looking at everything from, okay, I understand how narrative arcs work, and therefore if we do this, then it's probably going to
This is what he's probably got in mind.
This is probably what he's got in mind, and you're, like you said, second guessing the GM. Whereas if you're really trying to be the player and embody the character, you should be you want to be looking at the situations through the eyes of that character and through the intelligence score of that character,
right?
And not like I have encyclopedic knowledge of the monster manual or whatever it is, and I have, as GM, had players who were more along that second line and used that to their detriment,
right?
Used their encyclopedic knowledge of the game to make them just create more tension for them. Like, you're walking along through this cavern.
Or to their characters'
To the characters' detriment. Yeah, exactly. You're walking through this cavern, and you realize that it's almost perfectly circular and about 10 foot, maybe 12 foot in diameter. And the walls are just ground smooth. And my player was like, shit, we're in a worm burrow. Shit.
Right.
I'm like, was there a purple worm in that game? No. No, there was not. But he thought there would be.
Right.
Because of what I described.
Right. Well, there's a name. What do they call it? There's a name around volcanoes. There's a name for it.
Lava tubes.
Lava tubes.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't a lava tube.
Okay.
It was a worm burrow. It just there wasn't a worm there.
Right. Oh, there had been
long times ago. Yeah, a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, it could have been a lava tube. That is a totally reasonable explanation, except that they weren't anywhere near a volcano or sea line.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that could have also made that kind of track, but that's not where his brain went.
No,
because he was in D&D brain.
Yeah, of course. Right. Yeah. And the thing is, what we're describing here are still GMs who want to play.
Yeah.
What you're describing in your letter is not a GM who wants to play.
No.
It's a GM who has been... who has very reluctantly given up the reins of control for the game and is now regretting that.
Yeah. I would say that he originally agreed to the game probably because he likes hanging out with his friends. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Right.
But he can't shut off that. He just can't shut off that part of his brain that insists on being being in control.
Right. And I mean, and you got a problem too, because I mean, if you're serious about literally crying about not getting something in the game, there's also a deeper problem there.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, there is something else in his life that he is not getting, and he's expressing it through not getting his mithril armor.
Right. And it could just be like massive over the top control freak. I want to run my game again.
Could be. Yeah.
And certainly sounds like that, especially when the topic of conversation switches. Oh, here's the new game I have planned. It's going to Monty Hall. And everyone gets mithril. And it's like to be much better than this game.
I don't know that I've ever actually played a Monty Hall game.
I ran one.
Did you?
Oh, yeah, when I was like 1978 or 79. It was like in junior high school. And we had.
I'm not going to comment about how old I was then. So,
But it was like when we first started playing. It's like more is better, right? That's the way you think when you first start, because it's like you play a couple sample dungeons out of the book. We got a couple modules played through those. We're playing through them half-assed anyway, because we're just half-assing everything. And then I'm like, I'm gonna make a mega dungeon.
right.
So I make this dungeon 100 levels, and I had sheets and sheets of graph paper and little notes written everywhere, and like you killed this thing, you get 1 million gold pieces. Oh yeah, I did that. It was awesome, and you would during the course of the dungeon, you probably leveled up to like I don't know, 15th or 16th level or something. From one,
Yeah.
And this is like 1 or 2 players. Yeah.
Well, you don't have to split the XP quite as far then.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And
at that time, I mean, gold was XP. So.
Yes. But it was. I don't know. You've got other problems here besides just whether or not you gave the guy mithril, and that is. I don't think that would have helped.
I lost internet.
So I did not.
Good. It's good that you didn't.
All right.
All right.
You have a contribution for our.
Yes, I do. Fortunately, I already have it pulled up here, so I don't need to have access to the internet.
Let me get.
Pull up that shared document so you can just copy paste and not have to type. So I have something I brought in the early part of the game that I've been running for the last year and a half, and it's, as far as I know, it's done for my game. So here, have it for your game, have it for the world. It's an artifact.
Okay.
I'm calling it the Rainmaker.
Mm-hmm.
The artifact appears to be a metallic cube about 1 foot on each side. If planted in non-arable soil, the region will become viable, even bountiful farmland within a gold month.
Okay.
This harkening back to last week's,
right?
What a gold month is. See last week's. The effect extends to a radius of 10 miles around the cube.
Wow.
Local weather and even climate patterns will shift, if necessary, to provide sufficient and not excessive precipitation for the crops that are planted.
Oh.
Fields within the effect do not need to be rotated fallow.
So if like you plant rice, you're going to get a lot more rain in that area as opposed to kale.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And livestock who graze on the land within the area will not exhaust the supply as well.
Wow. Okay.
However, beyond the 10-mile limit, the ability for the land to support any form of agriculture diminishes precipitously. This effect is worst adjacent to the 10-mile border, forming a distinct ring and clearly visible boundary.
Okay.
The extent of this dead zone, in terms of distance, depends on how drastic the difference is between the land where the artifact is planted from before its implantation and the current time. Okay. And as well as the degree of exploitation that those who work the land within the region employ.
So the more you work it, the worse it is outside of that area.
The effect could extend for 100 miles in every direction, for instance, if you were to plant the artifact in a desert and grow nut trees around it.
Right.
Just take so much water. As long as the cube stays in at least one, oh, I didn't edit this one. As long as the cube stays at least 1 cubit underground, I'll change that. It's 2 feet. At least 2 feet underground. Not in clay, not clay or rocks, but soil. In loose soil. So the effects continue. To ensure that the artifact cannot affect local land use, it needs to be completely encased in at least 3 inches of solid rock or a foot of clay.
Okay. So this is it for it to not have effect?
For it to not affect the area around it, yeah.
Okay.
I imagine that if you were to put it in like a metal or an iron box so that it was not in contact with earth, that would also probably nullify its effects.
You hang it from something?
You could hang it from something so that it's not, so that it's not in direct contact with soil.
Great strategic weapon.
Right? I mean, this could be, and by the Rainmaker, I do spell that R-A-I-N, but it could be an R-E-I-G-N
sure.
maker, because you could turn not only your own blasted land into an Eden, but also everything around it into the moon. You know, I mean,
yeah, I like the idea of
it draws life force from around to feed right around in its immediate vicinity.
Right. Yeah, I like it. I like it as a, especially like it as a strategic weapon.
It
would be exploited.
It was a MacGuffin for me for the beginning of my campaign, and it was just like, okay, nobody should have this. We're good guys. We realize that this is technically not an evil artifact. However, really only evil people or very misguided good people would use this. So let's go find it and not allow it to be.
Well, you could use it like in the middle of a vast desert.
See, the way I think of it is it has to pull from somewhere.
But if it has a max distance, it can.
I don't think it does.
Oh boy. Okay, never mind.
I mean, play with it as you will, obviously, but I don't think it does. I think it has to pull from a life-giving area in order to replenish a dead zone.
Okay.
So that means the effect would actually reach farther.
Okay.
Which would make it actually harder to find.
That's true. Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, but that's my interpretation of it, and I was trying to give as little interpretation, just the facts, ma'am, about it as best I could.
Excellent.
So yeah.
All right. We've got like as I said, I'm embargoing adding stuff to this myself right now because we had because our Eldemy game will be starting. I'm not positive yet, but we're looking probably October 3rd. I think that's a Sunday. Is when we're going to have our first.
Yes,
camp.
October 3rd is a Sunday. Is when you're going to have your first
actual session because we had we had session 0.
Yeah, you had your character generation, which I think one of your players didn't make it to.
We're having a casting issue right now. So. But I've got 3 players with characters, and right now everything's kind of in limbo scheduling wise until we get that 4th player nailed down. So.
Somebody suggests that the Rainmaker would be a badass siege weapon.
Oh, fuck. Hell yeah, it would be.
Yeah, that's a good thought, yeah.
Or if you have a big enough city, an anti-siege weapon.
Yeah.
Everyone's garden in the city is like blooming and
exactly.
tons of food, and outside everyone's starving to death.
Yeah,
and they have all of the farmland in the world.
You just build a wall at the 10-mile limit,
right,
with the thing at the center, and everything around it you can't support a siege.
Right.
Wow, that's
You'd have to haul stuff in from 100 miles away. Well,
possibly. I mean, again, it depends on how good.
well, the more you're growing, the more you're exploiting it.
Yeah.
The more it's pulling.
So if a responsible leader were to plant it in already arable land, already good harvest area, so that it wouldn't have to draw as much to keep his area good,
Right.
then it would the nicest neighborhood in Mordor. But yeah, I mean, it's someone who was really responsible, and it's like, now we can't overwork the land. We can't, even though everything is bountiful, he actually cracks down on overexploitation of agricultural resources,
Sure.
so that it doesn't spread its effect. That could be actually a good way of a good, as like alignment good way of utilizing this artifact that I had not actually ever considered.
Right.
So I only thought about the bad ways of using it. That probably says more about me.
By GMing.
Yes. I mean, I wanted it to
All of our
sound
internet
like.
search history puts us on the list.
Well, I mean, I ran a game here that I essentially just like. Here are satellite photos of the port of San Pedro, Long Beach, and here's the building that you're trying to rob, and they're like, "This is just Google Earth." Like, yeah, this is this is all free applications that I downloaded, and you can get that good.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, early versions of Google Earth, they wanted to prove how really, really good it was. They something that is not as well known. They do use lower res images than they could.
Yes.
Because Google originally used very, very high res images of their own campus in like the first iteration, to the point where you could read license plates.
Oh boy. Oh shit.
Could read license plates of Google employees on Google campus, and it was like that was the level of resolution that was available. And then they're like, wait, hold on a second, this is a bad idea.
Right.
They changed that out. So you can't get that anymore.
Right.
Not
Then that plus, I mean,
without hacking, like, I don't know, the Noah.
I think everyone who installed Google Earth at some point went, I want to look at Area 51.
Yep.
Because like
Oh yeah.
and
you can.
except it's the resolution around most military bases is a lot lower than it is. It's like,
but I mean, if you want to look at all the various testing sites in Nevada where you can just see craters over craters over craters, you can see that fairly well. I know that they have blurred out certain areas over time. Like, I've seen blurry sections over Israel, where, like, within hours, I just happened to check at the right time, and I'm like, oh, I see a smoke plume. Reload. Oh, I see blur.
Right.
Oh. So, yeah, I mean, things like that. But the tools that are available to just non-hacker lay people, they will put you on a list.
Oh, yeah.
They will put you on a watch list. And I just don't worry about it.
Well, it's like for a while I was playing Microsoft Flight Simulator, and the latest version of it is extremely detailed.
I've heard, yeah.
So like I'm like, I want to fly through Pasadena. So there's an airport, I can't remember where it is now. It's over by, it's on the other side of the Santa Fe Dam.
Okay.
So it's like down the 210
It's just an airstrip down that way.
Yeah, it's just a little small airstrip.
Yeah,
So
we're not talking like Ontario Airport or anything. Just the small.
No, I didn't take off from
commercial. Just a small commercial airstrip. Yeah.
like Claremont or one of those cities.
Private airstrip. Not
So
private.
I took off from there, and I'm like, I'm just going to follow the 210. I want to see my house.
Sure.
Of course, I wrecked before I saw my house.
Well, yeah.
Because I wasn't paying attention to the altitude.
Oh, yeah. No, you got to watch that altimeter.
But the fascinating thing is I'm going along, and I can see landmarks, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm near lake right now because I can see this church spire or whatever.
And because you know Pasadena, because you know your hometown.
Right, exactly. But and then it's like I'll go over. Oh, look, there's Vallarta, and there's my Starbucks, and
Yeah, sure.
it's just amazing. It's just amazing, that shit.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, it's the degree of verisimilitude they want to put into these things, and they have only the best intentions in mind.
Sure.
But it does get a little when you think of it from a perspective of what could someone nefarious do with this kind of information.
Right.
It does get a little shoot.
Well,
Not
it's
that any
like,
of our listeners or watchers would ever do that.
of course not.
Of course not.
All right. Let's go ahead and call it now.
Short episode. Wow.
Yeah, what it is a little.
Well, I didn't get into an argument with anyone.
That's true. There's no one here to get into an argument. Well, they're stored.
There's you.
You can try it.
I could have gotten in an argument with Stu.
I suppose.
GURPS sucks.
Oh, I should talk about so it looks like the game is probably going to start sometime around October 3rd if everything works out the way I think it is. So, and now I've got 3 of my 4 players, so I kind of have an idea because players tell you kind of what they're looking for by the kind of characters they make a little bit. So, and I had to up the point totals because I kind of always been a hard ass about character point totals, and I start with 100 points, 35 points in disads, and 5 points in quirks. Boom. Mm-hmm. It's been that way since I played the second edition. And the people, they're like Chris was trying to make a character who's a mage. Mages are a little hard to make on low points like that.
Yeah.
She's trying to make a character because you still have, I mean, especially with one of the sort of game balance things they do with mages, because mages can change reality, is you don't really have a dump stat per se.
Right.
Because,
in that version. Yeah, because you have to have both your dex high and your IQ high,
depending on what kind of magic you do. Yeah,
right.
And she wanted to be able to throw fireballs. You got to be able to hit with the fireball, which is a dex-based skill.
Right, and of course you also want your health to be fairly high so that you don't die.
I can't remember if it's health or strength, but it's fatigue.
Yeah,
which used to be based on strength, and I'm not sure. It might be based on health now. I'm not sure. I have to look. But those are your spell points. Mm-hmm. So you've got, of your 4 stats, 3 of them are important.
Yeah.
So you could use that other one as a as a dump stat, but if it's health, that's keeping you alive. And if it's strength, you could do that as long as you never want to use a weapon. And but she also wanted to be able to be like decent in melee.
Okay, so
not great, but just decent. So it was tough. I ended up having to
sword mage of some sort.
Well, she was using a
I used
staff,
the term
but
over. Yeah.
But she took. I had to up everyone's characters points because everyone was. I'm like they're like. Jay was sitting there. He's like erasing and writing again, erasing, like trying to get squeeze as much as he can out of his points.
I mean, any point by system, you're always going to do that,
right? But I'm like, you know what? Why don't you all just take an extra 25 points? Because clearly, it's been a while since I've run it.
Well, I mean,
and it's a little tough.
Yeah. The other thing though is that I mean, even in Magic users in general are across pretty much all systems that I can think of. As starting characters are pretty weak, and I don't just mean like low hit points. They're just fairly. They do not come out of the gate strong.
Right.
It's something you have to build over time. I mean, the classic D&D example. First level wizard, you get, according to the current edition, 2 spell slots.
Right.
At first level spell slots. 3 cantrips, and like a grand total, I think, of 4 spells.
Right.
Other than your cantrips. I'm sorry, 6. Sorry, I'm just reading the rules here. Spellbook containing 6 first level wizard spells of your choice. So you get 6 spells. You can cast 2 of them per day. Mm-hmm. And then cantrips, which are
Right.
But over time, you build that character. So I mean, if she wants to have been and I'm really not trying to tell Chris how to play her character because she is Tiny Viking and she will smite me. But I mean, pick one to start and build it over time.
Right. Well, see, I mean, the character she built could cast like a 9-die fireball.
That's huge.
It would take 3 seconds for her to do it.
Okay.
But then she would pass out. Because that's
Okay, all right.
almost all of her fatigue.
Right, yeah, okay. Yeah.
But a 9-die fireball.
And for the type of stuff that you're likely to encounter at the level that you're at, that would probably end the combat.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
That would probably end
it's
the
not an
combat.
exploding fireball. It's just a regular plain old fireball.
I understand, but I mean, unless you're going up against like 100 fire methods or something, that are all immune to fire.
Right.
It's like, well, shit. Now what?
But I mean, she packs a wallop, but
Glass cannon. I mean, that's the whole
Yeah.
that's the whole concept of wizards. Is
Right.
They are glass cannons. So.
and it'll be interesting to see what happens because Stork's character is a mage also. Not a combat character. He's an investigative mage.
Right.
So he's got all the meta spells, all the information spells.
Yeah.
Which I need to read up on again because it's been a while since I mean, all the mages that have ever been in any of my games are always like the boom!
Yeah.
They're like mortars.
Yeah.
They're walking
exactly.
mortars.
I have a player in my current game who he started as a sorcerer and then he started multi-classing to paladin. Both charisma class characters, so
Sure.
It makes sense, right? But as he's been progressing, he getting more and more hit points than a sorcerer would get. He's wearing full plate armor now and can still cast sorcerer spells.
Right.
And but it's like I'm not a glass cannon anymore. I'm a glass tank.
Right.
Which of course immediately like you're full of fish.
There you go.
He's an aquarium.
Exactly. All right. I'm going to call it.
Okay.
Wrong one. There you go. Woo! Thank you for joining us. Season 29, Episode 3 of Happy Chickens Review Podcast. My name is Stu.
And my name's Kurt.
And we'll see you next time. No, we won't be there next week because I'm going to be at Idlewild Renaissance Fair. And then, but the week after, so we'll see you in 2 weeks, Saturday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you very much.
If you happen to be in the Idlewild area, go see the Poxy Boggarts.
You should go see the Poxy Boggarts.
And if you happen to be in the Vegas area, the weekend of the 15th, 16th, 17th, I think it was something, 16th, 17th,
October.
18th of October, if you happen to be in the Las Vegas area, come see Sportive Tricks at the Las Vegas Age of Chivalry Renaissance Festival.
Excellent. Right. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
The preceding program has been a presentation of the Angry Folk Media Empire.